Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB Bikini Pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Today's video and audio guest is a true small town girl who grew up in a place that had more cows than people, which I think is awesome. And she found competing 5 years ago and began in the OCB before quickly realizing she wanted to compete in the NPC. With her goal of being one of the best, she hit the NPC stage in 2019, having a great start and ending her first season even with an overall win. She then went on to take an improvement season before competing in 3 shows in 2021, placing top 5 at nationals and then hitting the national circuit again for 2 years straight until she won her pro card at her 5th national show, 2023 Junior Nats. And she teaches posing as well as online lifestyle coaching for clients while working a very intensive job. And we're going to hear a lot more what was happening behind the scenes leading into her pro card win, as well as just her journey in general. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I would like to welcome to the show, Kallie Travers. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm fabulous. How are you?
I'm awesome. Happy that you're here. And just given our little pre-recording combo, I know this is going to be awesome for people to get some insight from you. So I appreciate you being here.
I am so excited. So it was funny because I was just talking to a friend of mine, and I was thinking about like when I first started competing and first found like the NPC and wanted to compete in the NPC, like I would spend so much time like listening to podcasts. When I first discovered your podcast, I would go through and listen to all of your podcasts. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Like, how much can I learn? What can I take away? And I was like, oh, it'd be really cool one day maybe to be on this podcast myself. And here I am.
Here you are. And
Yeah.
2018 was the first year of Confessions of a Bikini Pro. So that means you've been listening for a very long time. And I appreciate
Pretty
that.
much probably since like 2019. Yeah.
That's so awesome. Well, I love to hear that. And yes, here you are. So before we get into everything, is there anything you do or think about right before your heel hits the stage?
Absolutely. So I am a big music person, particularly EDM music. So right before I hit the stage, I'm typically backstage. Of course, we're pumping up, talking with coach, going over things of that nature. But I get into my music and I just jam it out. And normally every year, every few months, like I'll find my new it song. And this year, my it song, I just kind of keep replaying it backstage at my 2 national shows this year, Light Up the Sky. And so I'm just backstage and just listening, getting into the music, getting into the grind, and getting ready to, go on stage and do my thing.
Yeah, that's so awesome. So you've had multiple maybe theme songs for each year, it sounds
Yes.
like. That's really
Yes.
cool. Light Up the Sky is a really great title given you're literally having to
Yes.
go on stage and light it up.
Exactly. Because and in the song it kind of goes over like moments, right? You live for
Yeah.
moments in your life, which is perfect because quite frankly, when you're on stage, you are there for that moment, that one interaction. You and the judges, like this is your time to showcase all of your hard work and dedication for the last 6 months or years that it's taken you to accomplish that physique.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such a rewarding thing as well. Like that moment is so gratifying for competitors. And a lot of people don't see it that way because obviously, we're more excited about the process, but then we get to step on stage and it feels so good. And you have like maybe that moment where, yes, everything you wanted comes true. That happened for you this past year. So
Yes.
let's just talk about kind of that journey to going pro, because you've had a lot of different opportunities. You have worked a lot going into the show. So start with us, like maybe in this going pro season and what that looked like for you leading into this show. And then we'll kind of backtrack from there.
Yes. So this prep pretty much lasted about 6 months, and bear with me. I have a cat that wants mommy's attention. Yes, I do apologize. So my prep lasted probably about 6 months this year, and I'm with Shane and excuse me.
So cute. What's that cat's name?
His name is Chocolate.
Chocolate.
All my cats have like dessert themed names. So
Were you on
the
prep when
dog,
you got all of them?
no. I have a sweet tooth, and of course I'm from a small town, southern town. So, baking is kind of something that I love, but I don't do. But, I now live vicariously through my baking through my animals. Um, so my prep lasted about 6 months, and the 6 months that we were in prep was probably some of the most challenging times, I would say, in my entire life, potentially my entire career. So I work full time. I work about 50 to 60 hours a week, traditionally with my last company. And during that time, there was weeks that I was even pushing past the 60. Mind you, at the end of my prep, I was doing an hour plus cardio, very little carbs, all while working these extreme amount of hours. And there was a point where I had to sit down with my direct supervisor and say, hey, this is too much for me. We need to draw this back, because I felt at times I would get so stressed out that I would go and binge things that were off of my meal plan. And coach and I, that happened a couple of times where I allowed that stress to kind of get to me. We had a couple of shows, or regional shows planned out before the first national show this year. But because of those binging episodes and the stress that led to that binging, we weren't able to accomplish our first original goal with those regional shows. So we had to jump right into a national stage. But Shane and I kind of sat down and we talked about those triggers that we were experiencing that allowed me to go off plan, and came up with a game plan to address those before I go and binge. So we would do other activities such as evening walks, evening hikes, reading favorite books, going over and just writing, or anything that kept me out of the kitchen, which I normally don't keep a lot of things in the kitchen, but like, I guess when I'm stressed out, I will find and eat anything. So, shows Shane and I kind of addressed that. And then, I had to make changes at work as well, and have those honest conversations where I'm like, hey, we can't be pushing 70 hours here, while trying to maintain a somewhat personal life as well.
Yeah. So what was their response to that?
Well, luckily, I'm very picky about who I work for. So luckily, like, the response was really great, and they understood where I was coming from. And I typically work for family-owned companies. So the response, even though it wasn't necessarily what the business needed at the time, they were appreciative of the fact that, hey, I came to them and I addressed my concerns rather than just up and leaving, or just kind of bearing with it and then allowing my job performance to be affected.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you sharing some of the struggles you faced even with food, because that's the work that I do and helping people with that. And a lot of people don't think that pros struggle with it, or that they can earn their pro card having struggled with it.
Yeah,
Did you have any doubts like that in yourself when you were dealing with it?
absolutely. And so again, I shared how we had planned on doing regional shows before a national show. And we had to get over an hour of cardio because of those issues that I faced. And Shane came to me and he goes, Kallie, you can't do this show. You're not going to be ready in time. And well, I'm a little hard headed. I was like, no, I want to do this show. He goes, you're not going to make it. We're going to have to push incredibly harder because of the binges that we had. And I said, well, Shane, I guess we're going to have to push because
Mm.
I'm not doing this show. And so, but the entire time, like that was in the back of my mind. Like, if I lose my pro card this year, it's my fault
Mm.
because of XYZ, because I allowed my brain to be weak. I allowed those moments to overcome what I knew what I was supposed to do. So even when I was backstage at Junior USA's, I became really several times there were points where I was so emotional because I knew how hard I had to push and what I had to overcome, those moments of weakness, as we may call it, where I was binging and the cardio that I had to endure because of that. And yet I made it. And so I remember being backstage and lined up for the overall in the pro card at Junior USA's and like almost like on the verge of just breaking down, crying backstage because I knew, hey, like I had to put everything I had to even be back here. So that was that was definitely top of my mind the entire time.
How did that change going into the show where you did win your pro card? Like, did you continue to experience that, or were those coping skills helpful enough?
They were definitely helpful. I would say we about 10 weeks into junior USA's, those coping skills really came in and kind of just no more issues. But even into junior Nats, I would say like that was still something that was top of my mind because I knew that, I had this timeline in my head. I was like, I want to win my pro card this year. I want to accomplish this year. And I knew I was like, okay, well, if you don't win it, Kallie, like, it's you could have been so much further along had you not binged just a few weeks or binge even 8 weeks ago. And so it even at junior Nats, like I was feeling guilty about it. And backstage, I was actually Googling hotels and everything. I think Universe is right after it.
Uh-huh.
I was prepared to go to Universe because in my mind, I was still feeling so guilty about the fact that, hey, 8, 10 weeks ago, I was sitting here binging and now I'm sitting here, taking in maybe first, maybe second. Like either way, it's my fault if I'm not first. You know what I'm saying? So like I still felt completely guilty of it. And even though at that point at Junior Nats, I mean, it happened like 12 weeks, but it was still like fresh in my mind.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. So you were motivated knowing how much you had to overcome. You didn't want to have to necessarily go through that again, but it still lingered in the back of your mind of like, I could have sabotaged the success that I really wanted for myself
Yeah.
this year. What
Yes.
was it about getting your pro card this year? Like, why was that the timeline for yourself?
So, I'm married and children were something that we are considering. And so, that timeline for us, it's close. And so I knew that, you know, I can't keep prolonging that. And I wanted to be a pro card before I even considered being a mom. And so that was why that pro card this year was so important to me. And now, we're sitting back and looking at hormones, looking at everything like, okay, do we maybe want to wait one more year? Do we want to try now? And so now I feel like I've accomplished my personal goal and I would be ready to accomplish another goal after that. But you can't exactly accomplish a pro card while being pregnant, which I think there's some women that have stepped off winning their pro cards. I forget who it was. There was someone that was
Ingrid.
pregnant and won her pro card.
It was Ingrid
Yes.
Romero.
Um,
Yeah.
yes, yes. And so, that was something that is on the top of or has been on top of my mind is being able to actually have children. When that will occur, we're still not 100% sure, but it's now more of an option for us.
That's so exciting. So this sounds like something you guys had talked about for a while. And so you kind of had your familial timeline and you had your personal timeline. And now the two have aligned for you, which is really great. When you felt that being threatened, like, what if I don't get my pro card this year? what was going through your head as far as like the family goals go? Like, did you feel that was threatened as well?
So this is gonna sound really weird, potentially. Um, but when I was at Junior USA's and I saw my coach, and this was only my first year with Shane.
Hmm.
And I had seen Shane backstage with his other athletes at previous national stages. But when I saw Shane's look in his face and him talking about my overall physique, those doubts went away.
Hmm.
I saw his determination. And his determination when it comes to his athletes is much like me. Like when I set my mind to something, like I will do an hour plus cardio a day. I will work my 60, 70 hours a week. When I have a goal, I want to accomplish it. And so that kind of was eliminated at Junior USA's for me. I was like, okay, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And so, up until that point, sure, that was something that was in the back of my mind. But the moment I sat down and with Shane in person, it completely went away. I had 100% faith in what he had created, helped me create.
Because he was really confirming, like he saw you now as like the pro version of
Yeah.
yourself.
Yes. The look, the everything, and just the way he carried himself, the confidence, all of it. It was okay. Not if, but when. It's a matter of time. And that's why like in between like junior USA's and junior Nats, like we had no adherence issues, no nothing, because I knew I was just moments away. And
Yeah.
on stage at junior USA's, well, backstage I was emotional. I've already shared that. And then on stage I even got emotional because I knew I was like, okay, this this is it. Like the last 5 years of competing has led up to this one goal that is just at my fingertips.
Mm. Yeah, your 5 years were really interesting too because you started on like this high and then you went to Junior Nats in 2022. And I believe it was that year you placed 13th. So then to come
Yes.
back and eventually win your pro card, like what was happening between your first national show to your fifth and final national show that maybe changed within you, whether that was some of the mental things you've already shared or that you had to do physically? Because you transformed a ton like over the years. I went on NBC News Online. I was like, who is this? I was like, this is
That was a lot, yes. So I'm stubborn.
mm-hmm.
Yes. And so I was with a previous coach, Ryan, who's absolutely amazing. And like me and him still talk. So like me and him were still friends. And even before I won my pro card, like he messaged me, he goes, "You're about to be a pro." I'm like, we'll see. But like I was with him and I kept hearing between all my national stages, every time I stepped off stage, conditioning, conditioning, conditioning.
Hmm.
That was always my feedback. I might have once gotten a little bit bigger shoulders, a little bit more muscle here, but nothing crazy, right? Like the proportions are there, the suit's great, the hair, makeup, everything's perfect. You need more conditioning. And so I think it was about the third time, or what, let's see, one, two, three, yes, third national show. I think I might be skipping a year. Fourth national show. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
um, that I got off stage and I was so pissed because not I didn't win my pro card, but that I'm getting the same feedback and
Oh.
it's all conditioning. And so at that point, I had to take a step back and look at it. And that was the decision that I made to hire Shane, who's known for creating those lean girls. And I had came to the realization that I needed to be pushed harder. There are some girls that can get by with doing 25 minutes of cardio, 30 minutes of cardio and get stage lean. I am not one of them. I'm not. I have to do hour plus of cardio. And it's just, it sucks. It is what it is. And sure, maybe there's some things I could do in my off season to prevent that. But at that point, I wasn't doing those things, and we're trying to accomplish those items now. But I realized that, hey, Kallie, you're going to have to completely absorb embracing the suck, the cardio, and before I wasn't willing to go above an hour of cardio. And I think that that was really kind of my key to my success, was actually fully embracing the suck and learning to love it, right? And then be willing to actually push even harder than I thought was ever possible. Because in my mind, I have this big work schedule. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, I don't have time for anything more than an hour. Well, wake up at 4:15 and you do.
Yeah.
And that's what it took. And I think it was mostly mindset for me. And we did put on a good amount of size, but I think most of it came down to like I mean, as you saw, it's a night and day difference as far as conditioning. Like, doesn't even look like the same person.
No, exactly. So you kind of realized you need to be pushed to a new level and you weren't going to be able to get to the level of conditioning given what you were already doing. So making that switch is a big deal, but you were already there mentally knowing you needed to do more. When you were told you didn't have the conditioning, did you feel like you were the most conditioned you had been based on their last feedback, or did you personally feel like, yeah, I'm probably still going to be told conditioning?
I stepped on stage and kind of felt like that. I knew I was more conditioned, but I still felt on stage, stepped on stage and was like, I know I'm the most conditioned I've ever been, but I still don't feel like it's good enough.
Mm.
So if that makes
Yeah, it definitely does. There's like, you have progressions of yourself as an athlete through this journey. You're like, I improved, I beat my last package, but it's probably not still the standard they're looking for.
Yes. And of course, when you set your mind to do a stage, depending on your goal for the season, I love competing. And quite frankly, I would be on a stage every single weekend if my body could hold up. Like,
Yeah.
fortunately, it's not my body. Shane definitely makes sure that, hey, let's go get lab work done. No, Kallie, you're not ready for a pro debut. Because that was something we talked about. Hey, let's hop on a stage again. Lab work. Okay, you need to calm down a little bit. We're going to just hang out for a little bit and
Yeah.
let's get that lab work addressed. But if your goal is to win, then, if you want to just have fun, like, that's great. And that's kind of where I was for a few years. And then when I said on, okay, this is my year for my pro card, I'm tired of tearing conditioning. I want this pro card. And I think those no's and no's made me want it even more. And that really helps me kind of mentally just push through that cardio level that I had never accomplished before.
Yeah. It's interesting how much that desire can dictate what we're willing to do. Like, I look back
Yes.
on my last prep and I'm like, I did so much more than I ever thought I would or could do, and push myself
Same.
to a limit like I didn't know was possible. But it like changed how I view myself as an athlete, and also like this journey and like what I want for myself from it.
Yes.
So I feel like those moments when we're pushed just a bit further, it's like those highs and those lows challenge or change us as an athlete too. So what are
Yes.
some of the things like, or maybe moments where maybe you had to dig deeper? How did that actually influence the way you think about yourself as an athlete and your ability to get there?
Honestly, I mean, I'm going to take it even a step further,
Yeah.
because there was one day I remember, several events that I remember. So, some of the I was doing some cardio classes there for a while, until about 8 weeks out. And it was when that cardio first hit an hour.
Mm.
And it's horrible. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I actually had a general manager, my boss, my direct supervisor, who would go to cardio classes with me to help push
Aw.
me, to help motivate me. And so we would go to 5 a.m. morning classes and do cardio together. And then sometimes on my days off, he would join me for an afternoon class. And then, so that obviously affects you as an athlete, where you're pushing past that, where you now kind of feel like, okay, I'm invincible. I can do anything. But I feel like, and this is one of the best, my favorite things about being a competitor is because if you can accomplish that on an athlete level, that spreads to all aspects of your life. So it doesn't matter if you're a mom, if you are what you do for your profession, right? That same attitude, if you allow it, can have a positive impact on every aspect of your life. Because again, if you can accomplish, and I have one of my best friends who's also an IFBB Pro that also works 50 hours a week and is a single mom of 2 kids. By the way, they're teenagers.
Wow.
So anyone that's a parent knows how challenging that can be. And she accomplished her pro card and was able to manage her career and her children's lives and, still had time for family. So for me, I feel like that mindset, that ability to know that you can accomplish anything that you set your mind to, it's more than just an athlete aspect. It's every day, in and out, professional work, a relationship. It's everything. And I think I often tell people, even if you only want to do one show just to see how it's going to change your life. Because I would not be the woman I am today if I had not found competing. Like, I don't even think I could do my job if I had never stepped on stage. Like,
Wow.
that's how much I feel like competing changed my life. And especially within the last year, I probably wouldn't have accepted my new job position if it wasn't for me kind of embracing that suck and having to overcome so many obstacles to step on that stage. And now here I am, taking on and basically rebuilding an entire store
Yeah.
and an entire sales team. So
Yes. You really have developed as a person as a result of developing as a competitor. And I could not agree more that it really affects every area of your life. I even had Joe Pishkula, the judge, and he does the Clash shows. He came on the
mhm.
podcast and I interviewed him about just the lifestyle and judging and all those things. And he was saying the exact same thing, like you can do this and you're going to notice it impacts every other area of your life positively. And
Yes.
it's actually something I think people don't understand or know until they do it. And then when you
Yes.
do it, you start seeing like, oh, it got me to get my schedule right. It got me to capitalize on the hours I'm utilizing right because I had to put those hours. Okay, now I have an hour of cardio. So I have to plan in my schedule. When is that
Yeah.
fitting in?
Yeah.
So how did you going from working like 50 to 60 hours a week, mapping out your entire preps, all your schedules, how did you have to do that to make sure you were not just hitting your goals in your job or your life, but also, of course, as a competitor and then as a wife too?
So I am luckily that I'm married to a fabulous person. And so I tend to normally take care of all the household, take care of pretty much all the finances. But during that time when we are deep in prep and we're doing that hour and plus cardio, it's communication. It's just simply, hey, I need help with XYZ. Can you pick up a little slack here and there? Can you wash the dishes? Can you clean the bathroom for me? I need to go and take care of this posing client, or I need to go and travel to this gym and see so and so or do so and it's the communication part. So honestly, if it wasn't for that, it would have been a lot harder. As far as scheduling, though, everything gets scheduled out to the day. And, I said I would wake up at 4:15 and I would come home between 7 and 9 o'clock. There's really no guarantee as far as what time I'm coming home. But my goal was always, hey, I need to take care of everything I need to do for the day for my competition in the morning. And so that's meal prepping. You can afford not to meal prep on time on Sunday. And if that means that you don't get to see, go to this work event, or you don't get to go over here and do XYZ, okay, that's fine. You're just going to have to accept that and know that, hey, I have to go home and take care of my food. I need to go to the grocery store on this day and this day to make sure I have enough produce to last me until this day. And so it takes so much level of planning, because you're planning like grocery trips like 2-3 weeks out sometimes. If you're planning on maybe doing a photo shoot around her, or maybe I go up to the shop gym once a week or twice a week and use their posing room and pose with Skylar sometimes. Like, if I want to do that, then I have to make sure that I'm getting everything over here accomplished. And so you really do become a micromanager, like, of your own time, to make sure you're accomplishing everything in that timely manner.
Absolutely. You really have to be. And I really appreciate how you said you have to set, you're essentially saying you have to set boundaries. Like, there's certain things you're not going to be able to do when you've decided, okay, I need to put my time into this. Like, if I know every Sunday at 2, like, my meal prep should be done, but I get an opportunity to do something that Sunday morning, like, unless I can find another place to put that meal prep in, it's just not even feasible. And that's a hard pill to swallow sometimes, but you do have to get to that point where you accept it, because you are choosing this lifestyle. And so working it in with everything else is important. And then going back to your point about communication as well, communicating with your husband what your needs are, where you could use support, and having him be there to help you with that as well is really key. Now, let's talk about your peak week, though, because this was when you started to make a few big life decisions too. So what was going on peak week, and how has that influenced you since?
So, peak week. So let's first talk junior USAs. I went into junior USAs and I realized, I remember telling Shane backstage, hey, I might be quitting my job. And he goes, what? Because that's, our sport is expensive. We don't have, most of us, we won't ever make money from our sport enough to pay all of our bills. We might get lucky and have a sponsor to help with certain expenses, right? But most of us, we do work, right?
Yeah.
And so, sure enough, there were some changes that were going on. There were some changes within the company that I said, you know what, I think it might be time for me to find a new employer. And so after Junior USA's, I ended up putting in a 2 weeks notice without having a job lined up. And luckily, I kind of already explained, I have a great support staff. So I knew that I could make that decision and still meet my goals as far as competing. And so the week before going into peak week, I had put in my 2 weeks notice. I had no job technically. And I had called a couple people. And next thing I know, I have 5 interviews with 5 job offers from 5 different companies. And by the way, you're stepping on stage in 7 days.
Yeah. And now you're thinking about all these different companies and the offers you've got.
Yes, well, it was crazy because I remember being backstage and like I had all the offers and I pretty much knew which route I wanted to go. And of course, when you're considering new employment, you need to look at all the factors. We're looking at numbers, we're looking at data, we're looking at growth opportunities. And of course, you want to make sure that whoever you're working with or aligning with believes the same core values that you believe in. And so I kind of knew when I was back, or even backstage at Junior Nats, I was like, which company I wanted to work with. And I had turned a few of them down and had basically like 3 where I'm like, one of these 3s are going to be the win here. Now, I knew which one I really, really wanted, but it just had to make sense for me from a financial standpoint. And so we were just kind of waiting to see all those numbers played out. So backstage, I was on the phone there for a little bit with one of my closest friends, and I was kind of going over like some of the job offers. And I'm like, backstage, like technically I'm unemployed right here, guys, and I don't know when I'm going to be employed. I know I'm going to, but I don't know the date, and I don't know exactly which company. By the way, some of those jobs also had me relocating.
Oh,
um
wow.
yes, so it was absolutely crazy. And I do believe in God, and I believe that everything happens for a reason. So within a 2 week time frame, I got a new job. I got my pro card. Um, it's just I felt like God was just opening the skies and pouring blessings upon me. Because had you ever told me like 5 years ago that all that would have happened altogether, like, girl, you are crazy. And sure enough, I got the job that I wanted, and I got my pro card all within a couple of days of each other, really.
So awesome.
So it was absolutely mind blowing. And I remember at one point just like sitting backstage, and I had hung up with being on the phone with one of my friends. And like I'm just like giddy because I'm like, I think the numbers are going to work out. Like I knew I had the job. It's just a matter if you want it, right? I'm like, I
Yeah.
think this is going to work out. I think this is it. I think this is official. And of course, now you got to get your head back in the game. Like, stop thinking about, where you're going to be in like 3 weeks, and get your head on your stage. And that's when the headphones went on and Light the Sky came on. It was absolutely amazing. Like it was the weirdest feeling in the world because there's just so much going on all at once.
That's the interesting thing to me. Like a lot of times, most people will focus on like the one thing, right? Well, this is one big change. That's all I can focus on. But I think when you compete or you have other demands, whether it's competing or not, but usually, like, I'm just going to speak to competitors here. We're used to
Yeah.
juggling so many things at once. Like, I've not, this will be my next year, will be my first year doing a prep while not in school of some sort. So I'm like, I don't even know what that version of me as an athlete is like. I'm like,
Right.
I'm used to juggling all the things. So,
Yeah.
thinking about you backstage and in that moment, you're on the phone with your friend getting the support, and then you're looking over your offers, then, they're lining people up. Most of the times, like, other people hear that who don't compete, and even those who do, it's like, that's a lot. It is a lot. And kudos to
Yeah.
you for being able to manage it, because others would have maybe checked out, I think, in that moment. Like, oh, you know what? The stage is always going to be there. I need to just decide on my job. I'm not going to.
Mm.
But you had your heart set on all these changes. There were things that happened that made you need to walk away from the other job to pursue something different. You ultimately got exactly what you wanted. But 5 years ago, before you stepped on stage, you wouldn't have believed that. But I think, as you said, it changed how you are and who you are.
5 years ago, if you told me that, well, I live in Charlottesville, Virginia. And 5 years ago, I remember making the decision to move to Charlottesville, Virginia. And I had no competition, like experience. I was just the newbie in the gym, right? I'm from a small town. I didn't start lifting until about 6, 7 years ago. And I remember making that decision to move to Charlottesville was so life changing, and I was terrified. Meanwhile, here I am backstage about to go on one of the biggest stages anyone could ever step on. And I'm talking about potentially moving and starting a new job and all at once. And it didn't phase me at
Yeah.
all. And that's why I'm like, 5 years ago, before I started competing, like I would have probably been, whoo, yeah, I had to like push me out on stage, like, go, Kallie, go, it's your turn.
Now you're like, I never want to get off.
Yes, now I'm like, is it my turn yet? Let's go.
Yeah, I totally get that. So
My
let's,
whole world over here is sideways, but that's perfectly fine. I'm cool with
because I
it.
get to step on stage.
Yes, yes. I'll figure the rest out later. Yes, don't worry.
I think that's so awesome. Like, you were able to compartmentalize to the degree
Yeah,
necessary.
yes, yes.
So what did bring you to Virginia?
Well, I'm from Virginia.
Okay.
And then I moved to Charlottesville. My husband was here, and so I moved to Charlottesville to be married to him.
Oh, okay. I do remember you're
But
from Virginia, but you're not from Where are you from that's not Charlottesville?
small town called Hurt, Virginia. And
Okay.
so moving to Charlottesville, I think was so terrifying to me because I envisioned Charlottesville, which is really not a big town or big city. But I envisioned it to be such a huge like city and just a small town country girl that's only accustomed to one stoplight, was terrified of living in a city, but was also excited, kind of wanted to live in a city, but no, it's too far away from my parents. Yeah, it was kind of terrifying.
That is.
Meanwhile, like one of the job offers that I was considering was in uh, Alexandria, so Northern Virginia, which is, three times the size of Charlottesville,
Yes.
maybe even more than that. I don't know for sure.
Wow. So you moved to Charlottesville to be with your husband. Were you guys
Yes.
married at the time or
I moved right before we got married. So like 2 or 3 months before we got married. Yeah.
so prior to that, was he living in Hurt or was he living in Charlottesville?
So he was actually in Lynchburg, and that's kind of where we met, which Lynchburg is like 20, 30 minutes from Hurt. And so that's kind of where we met. And then we got engaged, and then he ended up taking a job offer, which took him to Charlottesville. And then it was kind of, hey, are we going to move here? Are we going to stay here? Like, are you going to commute? And so we were kind of trying to figure out what that all looked like. And then ultimately, I did make the decision to, hey, I don't want my husband commuting an hour a day. That's kind of selfish of me. And I don't want to not be married to you. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to move to this big old scary city.
That's so cool. How old were you?
Yeah. Oh gosh. So 25. We've been married for 5 years.
That's amazing. I love that. Well, it was a leap of faith worth taking because it sounds like it led you to a lot of opportunities. And when you found competing,
Yes.
you had already been lifting for, I think you said like 1 to 2 years. So what was it that made you say, I want to get on stage? And then what was it that made you say, it needs to be the NPC stage after your first experience?
So when I first started competing, I actually had an old manager reach out to me, and he was like, "Hey, Callie, I saw you started lifting. Like, I would love to come help train you and help you learn some things in the gym." And at the time, of course, you're a brand new person. Like, yeah, come. And I'm a person that I love learning. So like anyone that can come teach me something, like please prove me wrong, teach me something. And so I took him up on that opportunity, and we used to live together at least once a week there for about 6 months. And early on, he goes, you should probably look into competing because he used to compete himself back in the day. And I was like, I'm not sure I can ever look like that. And then I started, of course, the world of Instagram. You find the one thing, and next thing you know, you're surrounded by these beautiful physiques everywhere. And you're like, oh, I really want to look like that. And so when I met my husband, like that was kind of a goal of mine, but I didn't really know what that process even looked like. I didn't know what a competition prep even really was or anything of that nature. And so finally, my husband goes to me, he goes, "Why don't you just hire a coach?" I go, "What?" And that had been lifting for about a year. He goes, "Yeah, just hire a coach and see where it goes." Okay. So I started looking at the OCB because the girl at my gym was competing in the OCB. And I picked out a show, and then I said, "Well, who's your coach?" She goes, "Oh, this trainer over here at the gym, also the same gym." So I started working with a small local coach who honestly, like Anthony is absolutely amazing. He probably, as far as like my overall gym performance and form and everything of that nature, like I learned from this guy, like absolutely amazing. And I still like he reached out to me when I won my pro card and stuff. So like he since has moved and relocated, but we still keep in contact. But he helped me accomplish my first OCB show. And then we did another one. And then I remember being backstage at that second OCB show where one of the promoters, us girls get in line and we chit chat and we having fun. You meet new people. That's how I meet all of my friends now is
Yeah.
competing. And so me and this other girl were sitting there and we were talking about that weekend. There were several shows going on. And she was like, oh, my friend is doing this show. And I was like, oh, I almost did that show. My friend is doing that show. And then I made a comment that I said, my coach really wanted me to do that show. And it was an NPC show. And one of the promoters turned around and goes, well, you look more NPC anyway.
Mm.
At first, I took offense to that. And then, like, I told my coach what was said. I was like,
Yeah.
Anthony, like, what is this? What does this even mean? And I ended up, I think, placing second at that show. And Anthony was kind of upset about my placing, but all of our coaches typically favor us. And in hindsight, like, it didn't really matter that much to me if I got first or second at that
Yeah.
show. But he goes, well, have you considered competing in the NPC? And I go, aren't everybody on drugs? Right? Like that's a common
Yeah.
misconception. And then he goes, no, there are tons of girls that are natural. He goes, you know why people compete in the NPC? I said, why? He goes, well, that's where the best competes. Maybe that's what we should look at for you. And I go, you think I can compete with the best of the best? And he goes, absolutely.
Hmm.
So we took the rest of the year to grow. And then I did two NPC shows. And then I remember looking at the overall photos and looking at those photos and looking and comparing to an OCB. And at that point, I said to myself, okay, so with my current development, I would basically, not to sound arrogant or anything, but like I would destroy a competition level at an OCB level.
Yeah.
I go, but why limit myself there? I'm going to stick with the NPC because I want to be the best of the best. And I want to constantly push myself to be that much better. And then at that time, I really didn't think that I had what it took to go pro. Like it sounded really cool. And then I won the overall because I did two shows back to back within a week of each other. So I had like two peak weeks back to back, and I won the overall. And then I remember that there was this girl that I remember being backstage again, winning the overall. And backstage, I kept looking at this beautiful girl with blonde hair and this bright red bikini, and I go, "Wow, like she is beautiful." Like I didn't think I was going to win because I thought she was winning. I'm like, that girl is way too beautiful, looks way too good not to win. And I ended up winning. And then she ended up going to Junior Nats or not Junior Nats, North Americans 3 weeks later and placed third place. And I had decided not to continue my season.
Hmm.
But that was kind of my wake up call. Wait, maybe I can get a pro card. Maybe that is in the wheelhouse. If I won against this girl over here and she got third place, what would I've gotten had I kept competing at that level at that time? And so that was when it kind of formed the okay, let me accomplish this next, let me set a new goal and see what it takes to accomplish it. And then that's when the idea or the goal of becoming an IFBB pro was born. Was to say, I won this show. And then I saw this girl who, I'm backstage, like memorized by her beauty, her glutes,
Yeah.
everything about this beautiful woman. And she got third place. Okay, maybe I can do this, right? Because before I didn't think that I had it in me to look like that to accomplish that.
Totally. Do you know who that woman is? Like, you don't have to say her name, but is she still in the league?
We're still friends. Yes.
Oh, I love that.
Yes. Her name is Kesha.
Oh,
And we're still friends. And if I'm going to be completely frank, like that girl has great genetics. And to this day, I'm still like memorized by her beauty. And it's just a
oh,
matter of time before I think she wins her pro card. She was, I want to say 2 years ago, second place at North Americans. And when I won my pro card, she was actually messaging me while I was backstage waiting for finals. And I was, it's pretty funny because like me and her have actually sat down and talked about that show, and we were both backstage looking at each other, like memorized by each other's beauty.
oh,
So we often call them that memory, and we're like, okay, yeah, you're beautiful. No, you're
I love
beautiful.
that. That's
Yes,
such a
but
cool
and
thing about
honestly,
this sport.
I was about to say the same thing. Is the coolest thing about the sport is like you get to meet such amazing people, and I say that I have friends that most of my friends don't live in the same state as me anymore,
Yeah,
and
for
it's because
real.
I meet them through competing, and I get to meet such amazing women and help such amazing women across the United States. And it's honestly the best thing, one of the best things about competing outside of, that mindset development spreading across all aspects of your life.
Absolutely. It's really like this sport brings us so much relatability among each other. And it's a
Mhm.
really small community. But, when you're on Instagram or you're at shows, it feels big because it's everything, it's
Yes.
like you're focused on that. It's
Yeah.
what you see. But in real life, to the outside world, it's not that big. It's really, nobody really knows who Miss Bikini Olympia is other than us, like,
Right.
and
Yeah.
can name the history of it as well. So it's just fascinating. And that's why I think it's so valuable, like to have this community and uplift each other as much as we can, because, and even connect each other, because it's small yet so powerful and amazing. And you can make such good friends. And then you get other opportunities as well. Like this podcast, like I didn't expect it to ever be this, but here it
Yeah.
is. And it's amazing for me. And then it's opened up other opportunities. As I know for you, you went pro, and even prior to going pro, you had opportunities. But what are some things that have happened since going pro?
So I am a sponsored athlete for Legion Supplements. I get to work with my favorite for the last 3 years bikini company, Toxic Angels, who are absolutely amazing. I get to work with Violate the Dress Code as well. So I fell in love with Violate the Dress Code probably about 3 years ago, and I am now proud to say that that's pretty much all I wear.
Oh, I love that.
Yes. And so I get to meet, not only do you get to meet the company itself and the products, but you also get to meet the people behind them. And for example, like Violate the Dress Code, I won my pro card, and like they sent me one of their new leggings and with
Aw.
a handwritten card. And so getting to work with such great companies like that, where they truly care about their customer clientele base and wants to see us succeed. It's quite frankly refreshing in today's day and age. We're more than just a number, right? We are actually people, and to have companies and to have an organization like the IFBB or the MPC where quite frankly, they take great pride in all of us being on their stages, and they're interested in our overall development. Like it's absolutely amazing. So those are a couple of things. And since then, I've had a couple of girls also like join on with me with lifestyle and for posing. I've got a really cool message from one of my girlfriends the other day, which somehow all my posing clients and clients end up being my girlfriends. I don't understand how this math works, right? But she was going through some relationship issues a while back, and she messaged me and was like, Hallie, like, I feel more confident than I ever have. And like, she saw that confidence from where and she hasn't stepped on stage yet. She saw this confidence start spreading to all aspects of her life. And I'm like, oh, just you wait, girl, wait, because you are going to see that continue to spread. And I can't wait to witness it firsthand. I'm telling you, I'm like a little kid in a candy shop just thinking about it.
What inspired you to start coaching posing?
Well, posing was something that was a weak point for me to begin with. And I started practicing. You know how you hear some girls say, like, I practice every single day.
Mhm.
And then you're like, wait, every single day? No, literally every single day. And I just become infatuated with, coming up with different movements, coming up with different steps, and just perfecting the entire posing routine. And I had a couple friends that reached out, hey, would you help me? And the next thing I know, I made it into a business. And I love every aspect of it. So if you can make something that you truly love to do into a business, just like you're doing, right? Why not do it? When I get in front of a girl and we're going through posing, whether it's a first time client or, a seasoned veteran, and you see the excitement in their face light up because, oh, I never even thought about, and it could be a little change that we're making, whether it's a foot position or maybe some hands position, rotation of the hand, and you see their face light up and they're like, that's my shoulder. I'm like, yeah, girl. And it's some of the best enjoyment I ever have had in my life. It's just watching those
Oh,
little changes.
that's so cool. I think it's really an empowering thing, posing is. Like, we get to see ourselves in a different way or accomplish something we didn't think we could, like move in a way we've never moved. And having a coach that's helpful and supportive and like a hype girl as well is so
Yeah,
helpful.
I love it. I've got girls that will send me, and I tell all my girls to do the same thing especially if you're not accustomed to like posing on a daily. Like if this is a first time client, I'm telling you, confidence is key on stage. The more confident you are in your routine, the more confident you're going to be displaying that confidence on stage. And so I will tell my girls, like, in between your sets at the gym, like pose. Well,
Yeah.
we're in the middle of the gym. I know. If you're nervous about posing in the middle of the gym, and eventually you're not going to be, imagine how much more comfortable you are going to be standing on stage in front of everyone
Yeah.
in heels and a bikini. Oh, yeah. And so I will sometimes get like, I love it when they send me like screenshots or they'll tag me in their stories and like, oh, look at I accomplished this, or it literally is like one of the highlights of my days.
That's so cool. And like anytime you're in a service-based like position like that, coaching, mentoring, counseling, whatever it might be, you really do feel so much excitement for people when they win because their wins become your wins in the sense of like you knew where they started and now you get to
Yes.
see who they're becoming because they faced it or they overcame it. And you wrote something in your form that's the form that the people who don't know what I'm referring to when I say form, I send the girls a form before they come on the podcast to fill out so I can, have some insight into different things. But anyway, you had said in your form that you, before you're coaching people or for yourself even, you want to feel like you're walking into a room like your name is on the building. And that stood
Yes.
out to me. So can you expand on this mentality a bit more and like where that came from and maybe how that's influenced not just on stage, but off stage as well?
Absolutely. In fact, this for me, like the philosophy of walking to a room like you own it actually came from a mentor of mine. And so I work in a male dominated industry, and that means I have to be stronger than any other people in my position, right? Not because I work for bad companies or anything. It's just, that's unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you choose to look at it, it's you have to be that much stronger. You have to be willing to work that much harder sometimes. And so when it comes to your posing or into pretty much anything that you're doing in your life, taking full ownership and knowing who you are as a person and embracing that. And when I step on stage, I like my girls to kind of have that mentality of, I'm here, now watch. Act like you step on stage, like you already won. And when you have that mentality, whether or not your goal is even to win or not to win, as far as placing, you did win just because you were able to accomplish something so unique and rare. And if you can adapt that process, that mindset, it's going to show in your posing. And next thing you know, again, you're adapting that mindset to one aspect of your life. And next thing you know, remember, it's contagious. You're going to have that same process in everything that you do in your life where, hey, I walk into my dealership. I don't own that dealership, but I walk into it like I own it. Or you walk into, this meeting over here like you own the place and you take such great pride in everything that you do and who you are. And it completely transforms the way people look at you. A really good mentor of mine told me that. And she had been a beauty pageant contestant for years. She was a hairstylist for years, and same thing. When she would meet a new client, they would come in and instead of being, kind of meek, no girl, come here, let me help you, let's transform. And when she was able to shift that mindset where like she owns that, like her life just 360. And so I kind of stole that from her and I applied that same mindset to everything in my life. And I try to, each girl that I work with, I try to kind of get them to accomplish that as well. And I remember one girl has stood out to me. She did her first competition at age 50. And at age 50, she was going through a divorce.
Wow.
And she was kind of, she didn't necessarily say it verbally, but you could tell in her body language, like she was processing a lot. Like she was in the middle of getting a divorce while going through a contest prep, and she wanted to do it for her. And she later came to me and told me, like, because I told her that, it's like, I need you to walk on that stage like you already won and like you own it. And you could say, that the divorce, I mean, if you've been married for 30 years and you find out, some very disturbing things after 30 years of marriage, how that could mess with a woman's mindset.
Yeah.
But she was able to accomplish that stage and truly embrace, own your, walk into every room like you own it. And she said that with all the challenges that she was facing in her personal life, aside from the prep, like that right there, every time she goes and she starts to feel down about anything that she's dealing with, that little piece would come up in her head and it would completely 360 whatever she was about to do.
That's amazing.
Yes.
It's pretty powerful what we tell ourselves and how we carry ourselves, like the impact that has on our view of ourselves, and the opposite being true, like our view of ourselves impacting the way we carry ourselves. So being able to empower other women with a message that supported you so much and see it
Mm-hmm.
then support them, and it's like the proof's in the pudding, right? So
Yeah.
fostering that confidence is a consistent conscious effort, right? She said she had moments she was still down, but she remembered that, and that helped her change her physiology, carry herself different, shift her mindset. So having a resilient mentality, seeing yourself for who you are, and also owning that on stage, I think, or in any room you walk into, right? I think that if anything, it's a representation of all you've overcome and all
Yeah.
you've done for yourself. Not so much like, I'm the best, but it's like, I'm the best because I overcame things I didn't think I could. I'm the best because I showed up for myself every day despite
You're
challenges.
the best. You got it. You're the best, whether or not you win or get last place on the stage, first place or 13th place, right? Like it's that mindset where, and it kind of lost for words, but yes, it's
I was just
it,
thinking about the UFC fighter. I think it's Rose Namajunas who does it, but as she's like approaching the ring, she just chants to herself, "I'm the best, I'm the best." And when she's warming up, "I'm the best, I'm the best." It's like you could look at her record and be like, "Well, she's not logically," but
right.
emotionally, like you'd show up like you're the best, and you tell yourself you're the best. Like who knows? One day you could be in logical terms, but at least like you see yourself as that, and so you can present yourself at your best because of it.
And if you're not able to accomplish, like get that mindset, right? And again, like when you walk on stage with that confidence, like when I walk on stage, I'm like, I'm here, I am beautiful, and it is time to watch me pose.
Love that.
Right. And I walk on stage like I own it, like I'm comfortable and I'm happy to be there. And I do that same kind of walk everywhere. Like I
Yes.
have that same attitude in pretty much all of my life. And quite frankly, if I win first place or second place, like if I know I'm showing up in the best that I possibly can, like I'm happy at the end of the day. And sure, maybe I didn't reach my overall goal at that particular show, and I'm going to keep pushing. But you're not going to be able to accomplish what you want in life if you constantly tell yourself mentally, like, hey, I'm not good enough. Hey, I'm not good enough. But if you're telling, like, I am the best, I this, then that is exactly what you need to accomplish your goal. You're not going to be able to accomplish your goal. You're sitting here like, you're no good.
Yeah.
No, that you're not going to accomplish that.
So true. If anything, you'll just prove that to yourself. You're going to seek ways to confirm the beliefs that you have. That's true in anything.
And you're going to sell yourself short, and you're not going to be able to accomplish that goal. And I've seen so many people, I'm a manager where I train people, and I see people so many times like get in their head like, hey, I'm not going to make this deal. Hey, they're not going to progress any further. Like I'm not gonna, and then guess what, you're not going to make the deal because you already determined in your mind that you weren't going to make the deal.
Yeah, so true. It's interesting how we can just sabotage with certain thoughts and beliefs like that. And I think when you've been like, when you have a failure mentality, because maybe you failed before, or things have happened in your life, or beliefs or concerns have been confirmed, it's
Yeah.
hard to shake it, but it doesn't mean it's impossible. You just need like more proof that what you do want to believe is actually more truthful and more worthwhile to believe in. And I think it's really special that as a posing coach, that's something you're instilling in people. It's not just, yeah, let's nail your posing. It's like, let's make sure that you know you're nailing it and you're bringing that to the stage versus just like, hopefully it's good enough for you.
Yeah, no, no, not hopefully. We are going to be.
Yes.
It's so amazing. And again, working with posing ladies and helping them pose is just, I love watching them, especially if they come back season after season and kind of watching that change. It's just one of a kind. It's and watching them progress throughout the years. It's literally one of the best feelings in the world.
That's so cool. Well, is there anything else from your journey you want to share with us that I didn't ask you about?
I think we covered a wide
Oh
range.
my goodness. I know. I'm like, I hope
I
I
just looked
didn't
at
miss
the clock and
anything.
I'm like, I think this has been over an hour already.
I know.
Wow.
I know. I'm like, I could talk to you forever. I feel like as it's just flowed so much. I'm like looking over my notes over here. I'm like, dang, we covered pretty much everything. I think maybe the only thing I didn't ask you about was you made one comment earlier in the episode. You said you're trying to not make the same mistakes. You're trying to do something differently post show this time around than last time, but you are also focusing on hormonal health so you can start your family.
Yes.
So maybe I should ask, like, what is your focus now? You know, you have your IFBB Pro card, you're in a position where you want to start a family. What's the vision for your future looking like, and what steps are you taking?
So depending on the decision, so we're kind of in a unique place right now. So depending on the decision that me and my family takes, we want to align ourselves currently where we can stay lean enough to where we're not doing a 6 month prep in our future, right? That we don't want that to have to occur. So we want to try to stay relatively lean while improving that hormonal health. So making sure your thyroid levels come up, making sure you don't plummet your testosterone, things of that nature. So getting all that in order, and then determining, I've got this big decision over here that I need to make. Bear with me. Someone is texting me here.
Yeah.
This big decision over here that I need to make. So depending on what we decide to make as far as having children, if we decide to postpone that a little bit longer, then we want to be able to step into a prep and be stage ready and keep that hormones and the hormone levels in a perfect place to either have children and or do another prep. So depending on that, we're either going to make a run for the Olympia stage or potentially have a kid. So
Yeah, there you go.
um, it's very exciting. And if we do decide to do our pro debut beforehand, probably early next year. So that would give us plenty of time to allow our body to recover, to allow, some normalcy, especially with starting the new job. We do want to focus on that new job there for a while. And that will give us plenty of opportunity as far as deciding what we want for our future. And then if we want to postpone having a family for another year, and then Shane and I will go and make a run on the pro stage and see what we can accomplish there. So we're not putting anything off limits, but we want to make sure that we're focusing on our health, making sure that those levels come back up, and that we're actually putting our body in a healthy position to where whichever way we want to go, we're going to be prepared. Traditionally, post show, I normally struggle with my reverse dieting a little bit, which this year we're doing a lot better job than what we have in the past. So we're just making sure that we're keeping ourselves accountable and using some of those stressful behaviors, or I'm using the wrong terminologies.
Coping skill.
The coping skills, yes, thank you. To make sure that we're adhering to our diet and reversing out of that show properly while improving our hormones. So the stage, you said earlier, the stage will always be there. Yes, the stage will always be there, but if you can't get to the stage because of health reasons, then you need to fix your health reasons before you consider it. So, and that's kind of where we're at from a competing standpoint. We're focusing on that health and our personal life, before deciding going to a next stage.
Yeah, that sounds like the best thing you can do for yourself, because that's going to benefit both of your goals. Like your goals as a competitor, actually, many of your goals as a competitor, as in the position that you're in at work, as well as at home. So
Yes.
that's a really cool thing. And you mentioned the Olympia. So whether it's next year or it's years down the road after babies, it's all possible. And it's so exciting to see other women really pursuing their dreams like yourself.
Yes, yes. So whichever way we decide to go first, but we will eventually see.
That's
Yes.
awesome. So, before we wrap this up, I'd love to get your best advice. So, what's your best advice for someone who's never competed before but would like to? And then your best advice for someone on their road to pro?
So for someone that's never competed before, I would say first off, hire a coach. And then make sure you are hiring a good coach. And that's a whole different topic we probably spend about another hour on. But make sure you're hiring someone that's going to take care of you, not just from a money standpoint, but an overall mental and physical standpoint. And if you have a coach that wants to put you in a prep and doesn't want to do a blood work, I would recommend you run. That same advice also will apply to someone that wants to be an IFBB pro. Make sure you're doing the blood work, because you're not going to get there if you're not 100% healthy. And then on top of that, be patient. and listen to the feedback. Your judges typically will tell you what they want to see. And I think it's so easy as a competitor to kind of not heed their advice, if that makes sense. And so I finally brought my conditioning, and that's what they told me for 3 years. And then I got my pro card. So make sure that you're listening and actually taking the advice of the judges, because they'll tell you what traditionally they want to see. And then if you have a coach, a good coach that understands the criteria, and I think that's a huge issue I see a lot of girls do, is they'll jump from coach to coach. But unfortunately, if you look at the track history of these coaches, they don't truly understand the criteria of the division. And bikini is definitely the most complicated division. So make sure you're listening to your feedback from the judges and you're hiring a coach that understands the criteria of your division.
Love that advice. So how can people connect with you, follow your journey, and even work with you?
I can be found on Instagram as One Buff Barbie, and that was before Barbie trend, just for the record.
Yeah, for the record.
And then you can also find me on Facebook as well under my first and last name, Kallie Travers, as well.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll put that in the show notes page, you guys. That's always on celestial.fit/podcast. If you're listening right away, that'll be at the top of the page. If you're listening in the future, scroll down to the category section, which is alphabetized. Now, it's not just how to connect, but you're also going to see a full breakdown of the episode with a summary, a bulleted list of the topics we covered, as well as episode timestamps. If you're watching this on YouTube, you should be able to click those episode timestamps if you want to go back and catch some of your favorite parts, or send them to your friends and teammates to listen to and let them know why they should listen to this episode as well, which it always means a lot when you tag us and post on your stories or message the athletes. Like, I can't tell you how many times I get athletes reaching out to me, sending me screenshots of the messages you guys send them. It means so much. So definitely continue to do that. It goes a long way. And if you feel so inspired to leave a rating or review on iTunes, that always means a lot as well. So thank you guys so much for listening. And Kallie, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Of course. And I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this episode. Just make it awesome.